Hello, welcome to my first video in my Learning to Program series. In this series I will be teaching C# programming from the very basics up to more advanced subjects over the course of time. In this first video I will present object-oriented programming and try to help you get a better understanding for it. I hope you enjoy the video. The definition of object-oriented design is the process of planning a system of interacting objects for the purpose of solving a software problem. An object contains encapsulated data and procedures grouped together to represent an entity. I put in there a class. The object interface defines how the object can be interfaced with. An object-oriented programming is described by the interaction of these objects. I'm going to try to break this down so that you can better understand what this means. It's pretty simple. It sounds kind of intimidating, but when you break it down to its most very basics, it's not intimidating. So I've put together a few slides here to try to help you understand what object-oriented design is. So we have three classes. There are these three boxes of different color. We have the toolbox class, the ratchet class, and the socket class. Each one of these is an object in object-oriented design. Each one of these different boxes is a different object. So in the toolbox we have wrenches, screwdrivers, and pliers. In the ratchet, we have the drive size of the ratchet, the handle length of the ratchet, and in the socket, we have the socket size and the drive size. When we want, let's say in a toolbox, of course we want a ratchet, and we are going to pull on this ratchet class, this ratchet object. So inside the toolbox, we are creating an object of the ratchet entity, the class ratchet. We're creating an object inside the toolbox object of the ratchet object, and we're calling it a ratchet. Let's take this a step farther. Inside the ratchet class, we are creating a socket object of the socket class. So now we have a socket object inside the ratchet object, and we have a ratchet object inside the toolbox. So when we look at this in code, this ain't true code. This is just kind of to help you understand how it works. So we're creating an object of the toolbox class. Through that object of the toolbox class, using what's called the access modifier, which is on your keyboard a period, we can access the ratchet object inside the toolbox. So inside the toolbox, we are accessing this object, and that object is this red box. So we can get inside the ratchet and set the drive size. So when we're saying drive size equals 0.5, we are setting this. Same thing with the handle length. We are setting this variable inside this class. Alright, now let's take that another step. Now we can access the socket that's inside the ratchet from inside the toolbox. So we use the access modifier again, the period. So we use the toolbox object, the ratchet object, the socket object that's inside the ratchet, and we can set the socket size that's inside the socket class. So we're setting it to 3/8. And then we are setting the drive size of the socket to what we set the ratchet drive size too. So what we're saying is this is the same size as this. And that is breaking down object-oriented in the very most basic that I can explain. It's just about using objects inside of objects. And then you can use objects, and those objects can all work together. Just like that explained there at the very beginning. That is the idealism behind object-oriented programming. Now I'm going to show you some code. It's more advanced than what I want to start out with, but I want to give you an idea of this object-oriented, because we have to have an understanding of that before we can move on to start into learning the basics of programming. You need to understand object-oriented. Okay, now here we are within Visual Studios. I've set up a project. I don't want to get into a whole lot of explaining the code, but I want you to get an idea of how the code would look for the slides that I just showed you. So this is a console program. It's got main. This is where we'll do our coding. But I've created 3 classes. Toolbox, and I have the same things within them. I've made these integers. Those are variables that hold of a type of a number. We'll get into that in later videos. And inside Toolbox, I've created an object of the class Ratchet. And inside Ratchet, we have drive size, handle size. And inside Ratchet, I've created an object of class Socket. And inside Socket, we have socket size and drive size. So in main here, we will create an object of Toolbox. We'll call it a toolbox. Now that is our object, and through that object we have access to a toolbox, and then we use the access modifier, and there is the pliers, the screwdrivers, the wrenches, and a ratchet. So we'll access that, and through that we'll use the access modifier and have access to the drive size, which we will set it to equal 0.5 float. Then we'll set the handle length equal 7. Then we will set up the toolbox through the socket. We'll set the socket size. Let's say we'll make that equal 0.38, like a 3/8 socket. We gotta make that float. Then a toolbox, a ratchet, a socket dot drive size we will set to equal a toolbox dot a ratchet dot drive size. Now that is the code that is identical to the slides that I showed you. That is object-oriented programming, accessing objects within objects, making those objects all work together. In later videos, we will start out discussing variables and start out with those basic subjects and start working through the more advanced subjects. But I hope this has helped you understand what object-oriented programming is. Thank you. Have a great day.